Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Charts with Dan. Today, we're going to look at the opening of the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, one of the worst named movies in quite some time, but actually a movie that I didn't hate. You can check out my review. I did it as part of my live show last Friday. We're also going to look at the second weekend of In the Heights. All of those hopes that those dancing legs might lead it to some box office glory, well, those hopes went down in flames this weekend. We'll take a look at just how it stacks up to the other Warner Brothers movies that have come out this year, and so much more. But first, let's look at the weekend box office chart. And the number one film, as I mentioned, is The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. I don't know what else you would call a sequel to The Hitman's Bodyguard, but that would not have been my choice. It opened at number one, $11.3 million. One caveat to that, however, is that the movie did not open on Friday. The weekend box office total would have been higher for this movie if it had opened on Friday. It did not, but it still is number one at the weekend, $11.3 million. The Hitman's Bodyguard, the original one, opened to $21.3 million back in the late summer of 2017, almost 4 years ago. So when you combine the fact that it was a movie that wasn't exceptionally popular, it hung around for a while, the fact that it also is a 4-year-old movie, and the fact that you're at a box office that is lessened due to the lingering effects of the pandemic, and the fact that there's just not a lot out there that people are dying to see, I would say this is respectable. It's not an incredibly impressive opening, in my opinion, but it's not an outright bomb. It wasn't a hugely budgeted movie, but I'm sure that there was probably a hope that it might have done a little bit better. But that's the hope for almost every movie that's open in the box office marketplace right now. It is a theatrical exclusive, so it's not going to be streaming anywhere else for a while, at least a few more weeks. And so we will see if it does have that leg power as we go. The thing that I think we're seeing, and we're now almost halfway, believe it or not, through the summer movie season. At the end of June, it's the halfway point. I think the pattern that we're seeing is that the hope that people are so desperate to get back out to the theaters that they're going to run out to see anything that comes out, that hope has proven to be unfounded. I'm sure that theater owners and studios would have wished that that was the case. But I think what we're seeing more and more is that, especially right now, and perhaps going forward, we still don't really know what movie goer behavior is going to be following this pandemic. What people are doing right now is that they are very selective. They are picking and choosing the movies that they want to go see. We're seeing it with A Quiet Place Part 2. People showed up for A Quiet Place Part 2. I mean, look at the box office this weekend. It's the number 2 movie of the weekend in its 4th weekend release, $9 million. It dropped off just 24% from last weekend. It was the number 1 movie again the previous weekend. So it's not that people don't want to go to the movies. Obviously, for the right movie, people are showing up, but people don't want to go to every movie. And I think that is what we are finding out as we get into the summer. Now, we're getting into the teeth of the summer box office season. We're going to talk about that later on, see how my summer top 10 is doing. I also had a movie that moved out of the summer box office season, so we're going to talk about what my plans are for that. But I think that this is the early test and the early message from summer 2021 is that people are being very selective about what they choose to see. Some people chose to go see The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, but not a lot of people. Like we were talking about, A Quiet Place Part 2 is in second place in its 4th week with just under $10 million. Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, positionally actually improves one spot from last weekend. It's there at number 3 with $6 million. It didn't have a very bad drop-off either. It dropped off about 40% from its opening. It wasn't a huge opening, but still, percentage-wise, that's not bad. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, still in the top 5. In its 3rd week, dropped off 52%. As far as horror films go, that's a pretty good drop-off. And then Cruella, just a 28% drop-off, even though it is still available for people to watch at home through the Premiere Access, so they have to pay $30. But it's showing some box office strength. I'm very much regretting not putting it in my summer top 10 because I think it's very likely that it's going to stick around. It's still there in the top 5 at number 5 with $4.8 million. One movie that you don't see in that top 5 is In the Heights. Out of the top 5 after 1 week. It actually had the biggest drop-off in the top 10 this weekend by far. It dropped off 63%. That is the kind of drop that when we're looking at it, we say that that's an okay drop for a blockbuster film like a Jurassic World or an Avengers type movie that opened to $100 and some odd million. Not for a movie that opened already low, like In the Heights, did not even open in the number 1 position, that you're hoping really at the box office, its only hope is that it's going to have some kind of sustained audience retention. 63% is not a good number. It's actually a very, very bad number, especially considering the box office climate that we're in. So it just continues to underscore the fact that I don't think that there was any one thing behind the relative failure of In the Heights other than people just weren't interested in the movie. They just didn't want to go see it. For any number of reasons, the audience in general was not interested in seeing In the Heights. I don't think that that would have changed no matter when it came out. With all of these Greatest Showman hopefuls and comparisons, and even last week I said, let's see how it does. The Greatest Showman didn't have a drop-off as big as 63% until its 28th week of release. So there's no comparison whatsoever to be had with a musical like The Greatest Showman. That was also a very special case. It came out around the holiday season. It came out at a very weird time. Its opening weekend was right around Christmas, and then the word of mouth picked up. It had a huge jump in business its second weekend, and then had that sustained pattern. This is a very different time of year. This is a very different box office climate, so there was never going to be a one-to-one comparison between In the Heights and The Greatest Showman. However, it is not going to have that kind of sustainability. I think we're going to see it continue to drop. It is not helped by the fact that it's available on HBO Max, but as we talked about last week with the movie-by-movie comparisons with the data that was released by Samba TV, it's not a huge hit on HBO Max either. So this is just a movie that had very limited box office and audience appeal. Probably from the beginning, it was hyped very much. We'll see. On my summer predictions, I was very high on In the Heights because I bought into the hype. I thought that people were going to be running out to see this movie, the big screen experience, etc. That's just not the case. So when we're looking at the summer of 2021 and really the year 2021, the first big box office misfire is going to be In the Heights because the bottom fell out of it in its second week at the box office. And much like we discussed with Samba TV and the fact that, yes, we are in a very weird marketplace, I think you can compare like things and make some conclusions. This is a comparison between Warner Brothers' 2021 releases, movies that have been released this year with the new arrangement they have where it opens in theaters simultaneously with it putting on HBO Max. This does not count Wonder Woman 1984. That was kind of a one-off case, a special case. I'm talking about since the plan was announced, this is their new strategy. And as you can see, In the Heights had a higher than average drop-off, even compared to the other Warner Brothers films that were available on HBO Max. So it had a 63% drop-off. That's the second biggest drop-off percentage-wise from its first weekend to its second weekend at the box office, behind Mortal Kombat. That movie fell 73%, but remember, it surprised people with its box office opening. It opened higher than a lot of people thought. So what you saw with Mortal Kombat was a big surge of enthusiasm in the first weekend that you did not see within the Heights. So you have the second biggest drop-off from week to week, first week to second week from Warner Brothers, but you did not have that big surge of enthusiasm in its first weekend like you did with Mortal Kombat. Then in second place, you've got In the Heights at 63%. Everything else has been fairly solid, except for Those Who Wish Me Dead. Those Who Wish Me Dead, though, had a very, very small opening. So that smaller drop-off indicates the fact that it also had a very, very not big opening whatsoever. Conjuring the Devil Made Me Do It and Godzilla vs. Kong had identical 57% drop-offs. Those were almost identical to Judas and the Black Messiah and The Little Things, which both dropped 56%. Tom and Jerry dropped 53%. So In the Heights, not just underperforming in the first weekend at the box office, but when you look at it in comparison with other movies to Warner Brothers that came out, other than Mortal Kombat, it was also dropping off more. And again, these are all movies that were also available on HBO Max. Again, just another indicator that it's not just one factor or another. This is a general lack of audience enthusiasm when we're talking about In the Heights. So the story on that movie has pretty much been written. Doesn't change the quality of the movie. I still think it's going to be a movie that surprises people as we go down the line, as people catch up with it. I still really like that movie. I may try to catch it before it rotates out on HBO Max because I can rewatch it at home. Maybe that's costing it some business too. The people that want to rewatch the film can rewatch it at home. They don't have to go back to the theater. It's still going to be probably one of my favorite movies of 2021, but just not a box office hit. And it's not going to be, sadly, for everyone involved. It's just not going to happen for that movie. Let's look at the per theater average. What movie made the most per theater? And this week it was the new release, The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Not a stellar per theater average, $3,422 in 3,500 theaters, but that's about the standard that we've seen. We're going to see if that goes up substantially this weekend when F9 hit screens here in the United States and in several other markets. We'll talk about some of the other markets it's opening in this weekend, but we're going to see if that movie can outperform that number. I hope so, because it needs it. We've talked about its release in China, the fact that it did not bring as much money in as they probably would have hoped. It's going to need a big number there when it opens here next week. Looking at the top 5 movies internationally, so these are the box office figures from every other market except for the domestic market. The number one film outside the domestic market was actually F9. F9 opened in several other world markets this past weekend, including Indonesia, Australia, and Greece. It opens this weekend in markets including here in the United States, in the UK, Brazil, Mexico, India. So if this movie, F9, is not the number one movie internationally next weekend, then something is definitely wrong, because it's probably going to be the number one movie domestically. The number 2 movie internationally is A Quiet Place Part 2 with $15.7 million. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, $12.4 million. Cruella at number 4, $11.9 million. And then On Your Mark, which is a Chinese film, is the number 5 film outside of the domestic market at $8.4 million. So when you take the international numbers, you merge them with the domestic box office here, you have our top 5 worldwide. And because F9 is not out here yet in the domestic market, that actually flips it. So the top movie worldwide, because you add in the $9 million that it made here domestically, is A Quiet Place Part 2, the number 1 movie worldwide, followed by F9, then The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, driven almost exclusively by its opening here in the domestic market. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, the number 4 movie in the world, and then Cruella at $16.7 million, the number 5 movie in the world. Again, if F9 is not the number 1 movie on this chart next week, something is seriously wrong, because it's hitting some huge markets this weekend, and markets that it really needs to do well in. As I mentioned, we are deep into the summer movie season, so let's take a look at the summer top 10. Some movers and shakers, not so much here, but in my picks and things that we're going to talk about. The number 1 movie of the summer continues to be A Quiet Place Part 2. Almost $125 million gross. It is easily number 1. Number 2 is Cruella. I said that I regret not picking Cruella to be on my list. It is cementing that number 2 spot, and I think given the results that we've seen so far, it's going to be pretty hard to shake it out of the top 10. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is there at number 3. Wrath of Man at 4. Spiral from the Book of Saw at number 5. Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway makes some progress. It hops up 2 spots to number 6. This is what you don't want to see if you're in the Heights. It drops down 1 spot in its second week of release to number 7. Not a good sign. It is not going to be on the top 10. The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard at number 8 enters the chart. Spirit Untamed at number 9, and Those Who Wish Me Dead at number 10. Here Today drops out, and this is also a little bit of a landmark for this chart. We now have major studio releases now taking up the top 10 films here on the summer box office top 10, and this is what we're going to see for the rest of the year. The smaller independent films were taking up those 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 slots, and they are very worthy of consideration. There's actually a great documentary that I saw this past weekend called The Sparks Brothers that Edgar Wright directed that was not the Per Theater winner this weekend, but is definitely worth seeing. I really, really enjoyed that movie. So just because the smaller indie films aren't on this chart doesn't mean that they're not worthy of seeing, and I encourage you to go out there and find those screens that are showing the smaller movies, because they need your money too, and there's some great ones out there. But we now have major studio releases taking up the top 10 summer slots, so that is how it looks right now. This is something that some people asked that I could maybe start doing week to week, and I think this is a good idea. Let's take a look at my summer box office predictions, and there's been a bit of a shakeup because one of my picks just got pushed out of the summer. Hotel Transylvania Transformania, which I had picked at number 8, was moved to October. And so with your permission as an audience, perhaps with recognition of the fact that we are living in weird times, I have made a substitution. Now, I'm not reshuffling my order. It's locked into where I had Hotel Transylvania, but I have put Jungle Cruise now at my number 8 spot because Hotel Transylvania is now out of the summer. I hope you don't have a problem with it. If you do, too bad. It's my list. But when you look at the picks here, 7 of my 10 choices haven't even been released yet. The green means that it's currently in the top 10. Eventually, In the Heights is going to turn red. because it's going to be out of the top 10. So basically now when we look at the chart every week as we get into the prediction season and more movies start coming out, these are my picks. If it's still on the list, if it's still in the top 10, it'll be in green. If it's knocked out of the top 10, it'll be in red. Obviously, if it's not released yet, it'll be in white. So my first 4 picks, Black Widow, The Suicide Squad, Shang-Chi, and The Legend of the Ten Rings, which, keep in mind, opens on Labor Day weekend, which means it is eligible for the summer box office. They have not been released. F9, as of now, will not be released. That will change next week. In the Heights, which I picked in 5th place, currently is in 7th place. That will be gone in a matter of weeks. A Quiet Place Part 2, which I think maybe I was a little low on, I picked it in 6th place for the summer. It is currently ranked number 1 for the summer movie season. Then we have Free Guy and Jungle Cruise, my addition to replace Hotel Transylvania. Neither of those have been released. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, is at number 9. I picked it 9th for the summer. It's currently ranked at number 3. We'll see how it shakes out. And then another horror film, Candyman, the 2021, not remake, the 2021 addition to the lore, is at number 10. That will not be released for some time. So this is how it's going to look when we look at my summer box office predictions week to week from now on. And again, a great suggestion. I love hearing from you at home watching, because there's so many things I've done, like adding flags to the worldwide box office chart and so many other things that have made the show better that come from your suggestions. So thank you for your feedback. Let's look at another one of my favorite charts, which is the last 365 days chart. So take today, go back 1 year, 365 days, and these are the top 10 money makers. And A Quiet Place Part 2 remains number 1 at just under $125 million. Godzilla vs. Kong finally did it. It dragged its monkey behind and reptile behind, or whatever you want to call Godzilla, over that $100 million mark. It is at number 2. Cruella moves up 2 spots. It's now the 3rd biggest moneymaker of the last 365 days. That bumps down The Croods: A New Age. And the old man on the chart, Tenet, is at number 5 at 292 days. It is now at number 5. It's going to be bumped out of the number 5 spot very soon. And I really think it's got to get to pretty deep into the summer movie season to stay on this list. I think it's going to be very close. I think Tenet is going to be clinging onto this top 10 by its fingernails. We'll see if it can make that 365-day mark. The Croods: A New Age has a little less time on the chart. I don't know if it'll make it. We'll see. Raya and the Last Dragon is at number 6. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, bumps up 3 spots to number 7. Demon Slayer, Wonder Woman 1984, and Tom and Jerry all move down 1 spot to 8, 9, and 10. Tom and Jerry and Wonder Woman obviously in mortal danger of being knocked off of this chart. That's probably going to happen sometime in July or August. We'll see how this goes. But another chart to enjoy. In A Quiet Place Part 2, I mean, we'll see. F9 maybe, depending on how it does. Black Widow, a big one to circle and see how it does. And we will see if anyone can supplant A Quiet Place Part 2 at the top of both the summer box office chart and the previous 365 days. Let's see where all of this activity leaves our 2021 yearly charts. Domestically, a couple things have changed. A Quiet Place Part 2, Godzilla vs. Kong, Cruella and Raya and the Last Dragon remain in their spots. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, goes up 2 spots. It has now cracked the top 5. Demon Slayer and Tom and Jerry have both dropped 1 spot. Mortal Kombat stays at number 8. Wrath of Man has bypassed the box office take of Nobody, so it is now at number 9. Nobody is at number 10. And then if we look at the 2021 worldwide chart, Hi Mom and Detective Chinatown 3 remain entrenched in the top 2 spots. Godzilla vs. Kong is at number 3. F9 is ready to hit the NOS and see if it can make a play for that number 3 spot with some big market openings this weekend upcoming. We'll see how much it's able to add to its total. A Quiet Place Part 2 is at number 5. Cliff Walkers is at number 6 and Writer's Odyssey at number 7. Those don't change. Cruella moves up 1 spot to number 8. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, another American film entering the top 10. It is now at number 9. So that now gives us 6 U.S. studio films and 4 Chinese films in the top 10. Raya and the Last Dragon is at number 10, although I have to say the box office reporting on this movie is horrifically inconsistent, because I had a total last week that I found this week and went back and it was a completely different total. So I apologize if that fluctuates a little bit, but it has been very inconsistent trying to get a worldwide and accurate worldwide number on Raya and the Last Dragon. I'm going to do my best, but that's how it looks for 2021 worldwide. Before we look at what people are watching on streaming, let's take a look back at a previous weekend at this time of the year, and we're going to go back all the way to 1984. I don't remember it, although I was around. My guess is a lot of you weren't even around back then, but picture this, if you will. Walking into, there weren't a whole lot of multiplexes, but there were a fair number, a movie house back in 1984, and having this selection of movies in front of you. The number one movie this past weekend in history, 1984, was Ghostbusters in its third week. Gremlins, which opened the same week as Ghostbusters, hard to believe, was at number 2. In its fifth week, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Opening at number 4 was a Sylvester Stallone Dolly Parton film called Rhinestone, which is one of the weirdest premises ever established for a movie. Dolly Parton makes a bet that she can make anyone in the world into a hot country singer, and she picks Sylvester Stallone. What a weird time the 80s were. And then opening in number 5 was The Karate Kid. That movie really had, again, as we call it, legs, even just one leg. It kicked the box office in the face and was a huge grossing film for that summer. I think it was the number 5 grossing film of the summer of 1984. So that was a movie that, even though it opened at number 5, it stuck around for quite some time, really found an audience, expanded. It didn't open immediately into every single theater. A lot of people loved Karate Kid, and that caught on as the summer of 84 went on. But what a selection of great movies to pick from if you were around back in summer of 84. Let's take a look at the selection that people have when they're looking at their streaming services, Amazon, iTunes, Netflix, etc. And as always, we're going to start with Amazon. At number 1 is the premium video on demand of Wrath of Man, so still drawing some eyeballs at the box office and at home. A Quiet Place remains a very popular rental. Number 2, the 4K rental of A Quiet Place. Nobody, people purchasing that film at number 3. Spiral from the Book of Saw, still in its premium video on demand window, is at number 4. The Hitman's Bodyguard, the first film people wanting to catch up, is at number 5. Then Mortal Kombat, people buying the 2021 version of the film. The Courier at number 7. Chaos Walking and Voyagers, 2 not very notable box office films that came out earlier this year. Back on the chart, people renting at number 8 and 9. And then the HD rental of A Quiet Place rounding out the chart at number 10. So A Quiet Place again taking 2 spots on the Amazon rental chart. Let's see what people are buying on iTunes, through Apple, etc. At number 1 is The Misfits, which is a movie by director Renny Harlin, who at one time was an action superstar, starring Pierce Brosnan. It is number 1, followed by The Hitman's Bodyguard, Nobody, The Courier, and Wrath of Man. At number 6, coming back on the chart, is Godzilla vs. Kong, people buying that movie. The Dry from Australia is at number 7. At number 8 is a movie called Our Friend, which hit the festival circuit back in 2019, had a limited release in January of this year. It stars Dakota Johnson, Jason Segel, and Casey Affleck. They were offering that to buy or as a 99-cent rental, so that's probably why it's that high. Raya and the Last Dragon re-entering the chart at number 9, and The Marksman coming in at number 10. And finally, let's see what people are watching on Netflix. First of all, the overall Netflix chart. And one trend we're seeing is that there's not a lot of things that are outside of the Netflix family on this chart. As a matter of fact, there are no movies on the overall top 10 Netflix chart that were not Netflix originals or things that were purchased by Netflix. That's the first time in a while I've seen that happen. Number 1 is the Kevin Hart film, a Netflix original movie, Fatherhood, followed by Manifest. There's been a lot of talk about Manifest because it is the number 1 series on Netflix, and it hit number 1 and then was canceled by NBC just this past week. So there's been a lot of talk of people saying, well, maybe Netflix should revive Manifest because it's obviously a popular series on the streamer. Last I checked, there were still talks ongoing, so we'll see if Manifest does get revived as a Netflix original series. Wish Dragon, the Netflix original movie, is at number 3. Sweet Tooth, the Netflix original series, is at number 4. Black Summer, which is the second season, new episodes available. This is a spinoff from a TV series called Z Nation, produced by The Asylum. They were most popular for a while for doing things like Transmorphers and the sort of rip-off genre. Well, now they're doing original series, and this one's pretty popular on Netflix, so there you go. Elite, which is a series from Spain. It has 4 seasons that are available. There's more on the way. That's at number 6. Coco Melon, entrenched in the top 10. no sign of stopping. It's there at number 7. Then there is a reality show called The World's Most Amazing Vacation Rentals. That was the number 8. Perhaps people either yearning for vacation or looking for a rental for their own vacation at number 8. Workin' Moms, which is a Canadian television series, a sitcom that has 5 seasons available. That is from the CBC. They didn't produce that series, but it's there at number 9. And then at number 10 is an anime show called Record of Ragnarok, which the name itself just kind of intrigued me. So I did a little more research. This is based on a manga, and it was, of course, acquired by Netflix. Netflix did not produce this, but this has one of the craziest concepts of any show that I've ever heard of, which is that it is based on, it's kind of like a Mortal Kombat thing. So you have 13 humans and 13 gods, and they have to face off against each other for the fate of humanity. But they're all like, established people and established gods. So it's people like Adam, as in like Adam and Eve Adam, and Jack the Ripper and Buddha and Nikola Tesla. And then they're fighting gods like Apollo and Thor and Anubis and Shiva for the fate of humanity. I have not seen this show. I've heard mixed things about it, but that is just a nuts concept. That is a crazy concept. So Record of Ragnarok is at number 10 on the Netflix most watched list. Now let's look at what people are watching just when they confine themselves to movies. At number 1, the Kevin Hart film Fatherhood. At number 2, Wish Dragon. At number 3 is Security. Security is an Italian import, so that is a movie that was not produced by Netflix, at least not for American Netflix, but it is a Netflix original. At number 4 is Home. At number 5 is a Japanese live-action film called Rurouni Kenshin the Final. I apologize if I butchered that pronunciation there. It is the 4th film in a live-action Japanese series of films. Ironically, it is not the final film. There's going to be another film in the series following this one called The Beginning, and the film previous to the final was called The Legend Ends. So this is a series that keeps ending and beginning. Well, it's the 4th film. It is at number 5. At number 6 is Unwind Your Mind, which is actually a 15-minute interactive thing that Netflix has. This is a little quirk of the Netflix movie chart. They don't list short films separate from long-form films, feature-length films on their movie chart. So sometimes you'll see this. You'll see a short film in there as one of the top 10 movies on the overall streaming service. At number 7 is The Devil Below, which is a VOD release from earlier this year. Has a 0% Rotten Tomatoes rating, but Netflix saw something in it, and it's the 7th highest watched movie on the service. At number 8, the Netflix original Awake. At number 9, Doggone Trouble. And at number 10, The Mitchells vs. the Machines. All of those are holdovers from previous weeks. And that wraps it up for this edition of Charts. Next week, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Number 1, the box office opening of F9 or F9 The Fast Saga. I'm going to wait and see what comes up on screen, and that's what I'm going to end up calling it. Look out for a review of F9 later this week. It's actually going to be kind of an interesting week. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on the road all day. I've got to drive 5 hours to see the movie and 5 hours back. That was the closest screening available in order for me to see it prior to release. So I will be bringing you a review of F9 on Wednesday. Also on Wednesday, I'll have my spoiler review for the latest episode of Loki, episode 3, that premieres late Tuesday night. So it's going to be drive, see F9, drive back, watch Loki, review F9. So Tuesday, Wednesday are going to be pretty fast and furious for me as well. Also on Friday, the live show will be out. We'll be talking about the news of the week, taking your questions, all kinds of fun stuff. Plus, if some crazy stuff happens and I just feel like making a video, you never know, I might pop in there as well. And of course, all my movies will also be happening this week. We're going to be continuing 90s action movie month. We're going to be talking about The Rock, one of my favorite 90s action films, with my teammate, my partner from the Movie Trivia Schmodown, Ben Bateman. We're going to discuss, it is both of ours, one of our favorite action movies ever. It's a great conversation. I'm excited for you to see it. Thank you so much for watching this show. If you want to see even more of what I'm up to, you can check me out on Patreon at patreon.com/Dan Murrell. We still have Movie Club coming up. We still have our Patron AMA, which is happening later this month. We still have a commentary on the way, plus a lot of stuff that we've already done this month that you can access. I'd love to have you come and join us there. I'll be back next week with another edition of Charts with a lot of stuff in between. Thank you so much. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.